speakers and performers to come right in this place. Before I start properly, I want to acknowledge the presence of my ancestors, because I absolutely believe that they chose me as a vessel for African liberation, and I can never forget that I stand on the shoulders of all those who have gone before me. So I have to have just a few moments silence while we commemorate those who allowed us to get to this point at this time. 1 minute silence, and people get things going on with that. So obviously my name is Les, Dr. Lez Henry. I'm a lecturer at the moment. I'm not used to using a mic, so I have to try and stay around the mic. Well, I'm used to using a mic, you do one, so yeah, different. Can't carry it. I'm a lecturer in the Department of Sociology at Goldsmiths College, and sorry, it's my sister on there. And I'm also a training consultant with UB Unlimited Learning by Choice, with my business partner, my wife. My business partner's here in the front. We've got an address book there where you're welcome to put comments about the lecture or leave your email address. However, because a lot of the emails come back, I would rather you write down info@newbeyond.com and email me if you want to be on our email list. And we have a website, it's here, I'll put it at the end as well, www.newbeyond.com. Our motto is learning by choice, because one of the things that I've realized about so-called education is that we have to choose to learn. We must make that choice to learn. And as I go through this presentation, you'll get an idea of what I'm suggesting. So, I went on my gwaan. And for those who aren't familiar, what are they doing? What are they doing to us? Challenging black assassination in the media and on television. The last record that was playing was Gil Scott-Heron, Revolution Was Not Televised. The notion of television comes from Gil Scott-Heron and the Last Poets. They were talking about the stuff in the 60s and 70s. They weren't saying don't watch television. They were saying be careful how you watch television. Well, we're going to expand that today, and we're going to think about the media. Now, there's a famous anthropologist, and anyone who doesn't know what anthropology is, sociology is the study of the West, highly developed and civilized, so-called industrialized civilizations. Anthropology is the study of the rest, and usually that means those people are represented in this room. Now this guy, Renato Rosado, wrote a book called Culture and Truth, and in it he quoted a woman called Adrienne Rich, who suggested that when someone with the authority of a teacher, say, describes the world and you are not in it, there is a moment of psychic disequilibrium, as if you looked in a mirror and saw nothing. Now, for many of the talks and presentations I do, I use this quote, because this was my experience of being educated in what I call the United Syndrome. Right here, sir, right where we're there. I never got anything positive or uplifting about myself as an African or a person of African descent, whatever we want to say we are. So there was a particular type that was always represented. Now, according to Marcus Garvey, the great white man has succeeded in subduing the world by forcing everyone to think his way, from his God to his fireside. He has given to the world, from his Bible to his yellow newspaper sheet, a literature that establishes his right and sovereignty to the disadvantage of the rest of the human race. This is what Marcus Garvey suggests. Carter G. Woodson, Miseducation of the Negro. We have so-called Black History Month. Carter G. Woodson was one of the people who instigated that in America in the 30s. He created Negro History Week, which expanded to Negro History Month, which expanded to Black History Month in Britain. He suggested that when you control a man's thinking, and before the feminists start lashing me, I'm talking as a human family, Okay? Because that's what I usually get at Goldsmiths. Hey, man, you've seen it, all this stuff. When you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. This is very significant because I don't know if you understand, but in America especially, after the abolition of slavery, when Negroes could legally go to the front door, they still used to go around the back. This was happening in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and even the 60s in America. So we're talking about conditioning. The aims and objectives of this lecture, we're going to consider the relationship between truth, and why those little commas are around it is because I do not believe in notions of absolute truth. I believe in perspectives and interpretations. There are some things that are absolute truth, but if we're talking about the way we interpret human behavior as culture, and culture is just patterns of behavior created by humans to make sense of the environment, so you can have a culture of learning, culture of violence, culture of identity. Okay? We're going to consider the relationship between truth, and I've put what we believe, and perception, what we think or what we think we believe, and I'm going to focus on popular culture. So obviously, and it's going to be in the context of racialized representation. So we're going to examine representations of race on television and in other forms of media. I'm going to also present examples of black resistance to white supremacist thinking. And you'll notice I spelled black, B-L-A-K. Does anyone know why? Why black, B-L-A-K? Late 80s, in Britain, black youths or black men like myself got fed up of having our so-called historical experience collapsed into the experience of generalized oppression. So if you were oppressed, you were black. If you read one of the books by one of my mentors, a guy called Professor Ekwekwe, he talks about even Aryan Caucasoids spoke about being black because they were oppressed. So what the Africans from the diaspora started to do in the context of Britain was say that our experience is different. So we will spell black, B-L-A-K. Karen Wheeler, UK Black. Remember the album? 1991. Karen Wheeler, Soul to Soul fame. You get the context in a minute. Malcolm X, do you know why the white man hates you? Because every time he sees your face, he sees a mirror of his crime, and his guilty conscience can't bear it. Malcolm X. Just a few things to think about. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for probably about 45, 50 minutes, hopefully, and then I'm going to show you a little bit of film that I put together. Because we cannot deal with television if I don't show you the visual. So you'll get that. Last year, I was supposed to do a talk for Lewisham Council. Some of you will be aware of it. But I wanted to tackle this whole notion of Yardies and Jamaicans being homophobic and and blah, blah, blah. So every year I do a lecture for Lewisham Council, and I also do lectures for Greenwich Council. So you will see that on the 7th of July 2004, like I do every year, around that time, I sent my little outline to Lewisham via email. In this talk, Dr. Lez Henry will focus on the manner in which ideas of race, gender, and sexuality are represented in reggae dancehall music, and consider the validity of charges of homophobia that are being used to deny Jamaican artists the right to perform in front of black communities in Britain. All that is asked is that you bring your mind and make sure it's healthy. That's what I usually have. Bring your mind, make sure it's healthy. That's reason. Never heard nothing. And then my brethren and some of my sisters and them who were working in Lewisham said, Les, them ban your talk, you know. I said, I didn't mean them ban your talk, and I'm not telling them nothing. Them ban your talk, you know, Les. I said, man, them can't ban it, so. Then I got this. 4th of August. 7th of July, 4th of August. Dear Dr. Henry, Thank you for your copy for the Black History Month brochure. That, blah, blah. I was suggested that I should anonymize people. I would have just copied the whole of them up. Has shared with me. Your proposed talk, Outrage Us Born by the Freedom of Speech, certainly sounds a basis for a topical and controversial discussion. I have no doubt that your aim is to hold an objective and balanced debate. I am, however, concerned that the event could give the opportunity for others to use it to promote views and opinions that might cause offence or conflict in some sections of the community. As such, an event of the kind proposed would not fit particularly well with the tone that has been established for Black History Month in Lewisham over many years. We would not wish to fund it as part of the programme for this year. I hope this decision will not deter you from making further contributions to Black History Month this year and the future. Yours sincerely, blah blah, Acting Executive Director of Education and Culture. So, me being me, Mr. Gwaan. Dear Miss, I think it is strange that my lecture was pulled without consultation. There has been no dialogue between myself and anyone in a senior position, those who really make the decisions that matter, about the concerns that have been expressed with regard to my proposed talk. Yet the supreme irony is that the way the Council have handled the whole affair is exactly why I wanted to have this discussion in the first place. You could state that you are weary about the reactions, actions of others in the community without stating exactly who these others are, or more importantly, what these concerns are. For to suggest that you know my discussion would be balanced and objective, and then deny me the opportunity to present it, or even discuss how it could be represented, so as not to cause offence to whoever it is you are concerned about, is disingenuous and patronising to the extreme. I think it is insulting and offensive that a community that has a single month allocated to them to redress the imbalances caused by institutionalised racism and other forms of discrimination that are endemic to this racist society have faceless gatekeepers telling them as taxpayers and members of Lewisham Borough who could speak to them about the issues that affect their everyday existence. You see, you cannot expect me to take seriously any claim about conflict when it was out of conflict that the whole idea of Black History Month arose, firstly in the USA and then here. Moreover, it would have been respectful to engage in some form of dialogue about what is at stake in the lecture, as in the outline I stated I was interested in discussing race, gender and sexuality in reggae music, and yet the only problem was my usage of the word homophobia. This means that once again, people who do not appreciate the seriousness of these issues as part of the legacy of colonialism in all of its pernicious manifestations, including much that is suggested in reggae music, have denied those who the music affects the most from having a reasoned and informed debate about that which is important to us, the Black community in Britain. But I suppose this is freedom of speech for those who generally react without an in-depth knowledge of that which they are reacting to. Now, why did I drop that? Because I knew this was going to happen. You see this? This is a play what's coming out. And this is what he says. If music be the food of hate, bashment. Was it the music that made you do it? Did you chant lyrics while you beat his brains out? Did the preacher inspire you to despise people who fall in love without your permission? Where does the rage begin? He was white and he was queer. And he was there, in our club, in our music, in our face. What's he expect? A kiss and a cuddle. An electrifying new play, hard hitting, tender, and painfully funny, about love, about hate. Bashment is a play for our times. But did I get fit? I knew it was going to come. Soon, trust me. And I ain't no mystical prophet. I just use my mind sometimes in the right way. I guarantee that you will get some researcher, probably a white one, pretty soon, get about probably 100 grand to do some research on bashment, and they will say, well, actually, it really means bash men. But guarantee, you watch, it'll come. It will come. The reason why is because these are people who not only don't understand the history of what we're actually going through, and the problems that we have, because we do have problems with certain taboos that we have in the so-called Black community, and we need to resolve them. And that's why I wanted to have that debate. That's why I wanted to have it within the community, so us, from whatever aspects of blackness we represent, can have that debate amongst ourselves, because that's what we need to do. We can't have these faceless people, especially white people, telling us how to manage our own affairs. I absolutely resent it. And I personally don't think we should put up with it. Anyway, one of the reasons why I suggest this happens is because a lot of us don't really have a historical memory that we use. So this is from George Lamming's book, In the Castle of My Skin. The idea of ownership. One man owned another. Imagine any man in any part of the world owning a man or woman from Barbados. They would forget all about it since it happened so long ago. Moreover, they weren't told anything about that. They had read about the Battle of Hastings and William the Conqueror. That happened so many hundreds of years ago. And slavery was thousands of years before that. It was too far back for anyone to worry about teaching it as history. That's really why it wasn't taught. It was too far back. History had to begin somewhere, but not so far back. And nobody knew where the slavery business took place. The teacher had simply said, not here, somewhere else. Probably it never happened at all. George Lamb. My old mate Tony Sewell, sometimes he chats some stuff I agree with, and he's published a really good book on schooling and masculinity. But when I saw this article, July 2003, cultural exchange, slavery took a heavy toll, but it created much Western culture. If it were not for slavery, we wouldn't have the blues, jazz, or reggae. What really disturbs me about that is it operates out of that premise that Africans only produce under sufferation. It fits into this notion that before we were enslaved by Europeans, we never created anything, so we don't have any history of note. And he also describes slavery as a beautiful experience. To me, it needed a test. But this is what he says. You can read the article. Importation 1793, that's easy. Deportation 1993, who's that? Say it again, brother. Joyce Gard. Joy Gard. We're just going to do a bit of thinking today. Who voted? Don't be ashamed. Yeah? Later. Right. Blair, it's time for Slavery Memorial Day. This was in this week's New Nation. I don't see reparations as a way forward. Well, to me, when you've got people talking about slavery as a beautiful experience, what do you want reparations for? But I have a little question to ask people. I personally believe that as an African, twice removed, firstly from Africa, then Caribbean to the Caribbean, I don't end up yes. Twice removed. I personally think that I represent the best memorial we could ever have. Can anyone guess what that is? Sister said survival. No. Henry. Henry. That's how you got that name. What more memorial do you want than slavery than walking around with your slave master's name? What more testament do you want to a historical experience than walking around with your slave master's name? Many people say to me, boy, let's just forget rid of the name there and call yourself really, but people give me many names. Some of my sisters that call me Ajagun in Yoruba, it's warrior. In Ghana, Kwaku, born on Wednesday. I have many names, but that name, William, Alistair, Anthony, Henry, is my memorial and testament. Me don't want Tony Blair give me some money. I don't want no memorial. If you don't want to sign a petition and say, Tony, forget the memorial, give Les Henry the money, look up in that big horse in Jamaica. I don't want no memorial, I want some money, I want some reparations. At least 400 years unpaid labor. It makes sense. 1989, I was offered a deal by a record company, but when they heard some of my lyrics, it was retracted. It was the second time it happened to me in the 80s. This was one of the lyrics. It's an extract of a lyric I used to chant. And it's 3/5 part human, just an equation. That's what the white man did to the African nation. Took my name, called me Henry, because they knew it would be easier to send me to fight some battle for Queen and country. Good old England, I use the term loosely. Because when I'm in a kit, I'm a good old Brit. When I take it off, I'm treated like shit. In my face, you spit at every opportunity and tell me to get back to my community. To what I do, I can't go to him. Because he doesn't represent me. He cannot represent me. If you know your history, you will know where you are coming from, then you wouldn't have to ask me who the hell I think I am. Robert Nesta Marley. One of the few songs you won't hear them play on the radio. If you know your history, you don't ask me who I think I am. You can call me nigger. Remember this? Uncle Sam wants you nigger. I don't know, have you ever seen this before? This was part of the anti-Vietnam propaganda campaign that the Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton, Culture Cleaver, Angela Davis, blah, 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 put out in the 60s. It says, become a member of the world's highest paid black mercenary army. Fight for freedom in Vietnam. Support white power. Travel to Vietnam, you might get a medal. Receive valuable training in the skills of killing off other oppressed people. Die nigga die, you can't die fast enough in the ghettos. So run to your nearest recruiting chamber. We could republish this in the context of Iraq today. And many other spaces and places. I don't even want to start talking about the motherland because I start getting angry and lose my flow. And it's good to be angry sometimes. But at least people tell you about all this and that. Sometimes you have to get vexed. Burning at the Stake of the United States. It's a little book. It's about 20 pages. Newspaper accounts of a couple of lynchings and burnings of so-called Negroes in America in the 1917, 1918, something like that. But the reason why I show this is because this is what used to happen to niggers. And this is what happens to niggers. This is why I resent the fact that anyone other than my brethren in America calling me a nigger, because I understand the context within which they use it. I was on holiday once in Antigua or something in the swimming pool, and one brother come up to me and said, "Yo, what's up, nigger? You still there?" "Yeah, I can't." "Which nigger?" He said, "Some nigger boy, yeah." "Which nigger?"
Sorry, context is that
as a greeting. But he wasn't African American.
Yeah, but how do you apply nigger to a fellow black man?
How do I, sorry?
How do you justify calling a fellow black man a nigger?
I don't. But only in the context of African Americans, because their history is slightly different with regards to what a nigger is and is not. I'm gonna now. The word Negro is Spanish for black. The Spanish language comes from Latin, which has its origins in classical Greek. The word Negro in Greek is derived from the root word necro, meaning dead. What was once referred to as a physical condition is now regarded as an appropriate state of mind for millions of Africans. This is from Tony Browder's book, The Browder File. Now, there are many arguments as to why Africans were called Negroes. One of them is because when the ancient Greeks went into North Africa to learn, they saw the Africans in front of the temples and they thought they were worshipping the dead. Necro, Negro. And the Grimm's law of consonants, C and G, and all those kind of things are interchangeable, which is why East Asians have very serious problems saying yellow. They will say yellow. And it's allowed. Best way to look at it, look at some of the old slave records when they used to spell slaves and they would put B-E-F-T, slaves. This is why you have that phonetic alphabet, alpha, whatever it is. You know, there's something where everybody started using. Because it's to avoid that confusion. But the point that Tony Browder makes is that what once described a psychological position, or what once described, I should say, a physical condition, now becomes a psychological impediment. He suggests that the name you respond to determines the amount of your self-worth. Similarly, the way a group of people collectively respond to a name can have devastating effects on their lives, particularly if they did not choose that name. I haven't forgotten you, brother, I haven't forgotten you, sister, but afterwards we can get into it. Because the point that I'm making is, if we're saying that when Europeans supposedly discovered Africans and decided to call them Negroes, they already knew Africans as Moors, black Moors, and all kinds of stuff, Ethiopians sometimes, Indians, whatever. So you have to wonder why in the 14th or 15th century they didn't draw maps of Africa, they called it Negro land. Have any of you ever seen them maps of Africa as Negro land? The land of the Negroes. They knew why. Because as slaves were absolutely interchangeable. We were the only members of the human family who were reduced to a mathematical equation, 3/5 of a human being in the American Constitution. And America is significant because it is the benchmark that African achievement is still measured by. And if you're from the Caribbean, you are still part of the America's experience. 3/5 of a human being. Articles of commerce. That's why I did that lyric. But even more significantly, during the American Revolution, apparently the first person to die was a slave called Crispus Attucks. But I don't know if you knew or you know that when they were calculating the amounts of deaths, because of the 3/5 human law, for every 5 slaves that were killed, it registered as 3 men. And if you want a good way to think about that, in Huckleberry Finn or something, there's some thing where that paddleboard business they blow up. And he goes, I think it's Aunt Sally, I don't know what her name is, or Sally. He goes to her and says, oh, there was an accident today. And she said, oh, what happened? The paddle boat blew up. Oh, did it? Did anyone get killed? Oh, only a few niggas got blown up, died. Oh, God, thank God no one got killed. That's what it says in that book. 3/5 of a human being. You check this stuff out. Or if you email me, I can send you the references. Not a problem. Does anyone remember this paper? Still around, isn't it? London Extra. It gone? Thank God. London Extra. Do you remember what Browder says? The name that you respond to determines the amount of your self-worth. Let's think about this in the context of us. Many of us would describe ourselves as Afro-Caribbeans. Yeah. But you can't tick it on the form. You can be black Caribbean, black British, or even black Brutish. You can be black Arab, black this, black that. You can be African, African this, African that, but not African Caribbean. So somebody is defining and determining someone else's reality. Someone has control of that situation. This is a very good example of it. I always used to see this paper around the college, and it was London Extra, Black Londoners' first free newspaper. It was for black Londoners primarily. Yes? No problems there, no mystery. So we have April 25th, May the 1st, 2003. And then by September the 12th to 18th, 2003, it became Urban Londoners. I see these adverts on TV. Oh, check out the Urban Music Award. Every artist they mention is black. So why urban? You need to think about that, because I guarantee that in 10 years' time, you won't be even ticking black on a form, you'll be ticking urban. You think I'm joking? You'll be ticking urban. You can be urban but not urbane, which is sophisticated. You need to think about these things. You know, sometimes, you know, me feel like it's my head tech me and on is me when I'm out, you know, and then I'll show it to someone and say, I'm true, let's now. I say, good enough, let's go. In that same newspaper, I open up the newspaper, I see this bread and I say, wow, Big hitter, you know, look at 20 million pound up there, so you know, big hitter. Big hitter. 20 million pounds. Man dress up in a power suit, you know, in my league, you know. Look in the corner there's a, because the sisters are into the hair stuff, I'm not sure who it is. No disrespect. But he has his captive audience. And I saw it and I looked in the paper and I said, wow, the same black Londoners. I said, wow, that's all right. Then when I cast my mind over the page, look here. No, you ask me what am I going with and I will tell you this. I ain't making it up, the stuff is there. The thing is, what I really hope about this lecture is I don't tell you anything that you have to think, God, I've never seen that or heard that before. Because it's the stuff that you are familiar with that is the most dangerous to your psychological well-being. It's like when they say, the other day was my daughter's birthday, we bought her this thing. The thing was in these boxes, they must have been 8 foot long. And you know where I hid them? Right in the middle of the kitchen and she never see them. Hidden in plain sight. That's what you call it. Hidden in plain sight. She picked up and she walked around, she never see it. But if I had hidden it, she would have found it. And this is exactly what they do. This is how these things work. Because your mind just processes them all the time and you don't even sometimes realize what it is you're processing. What is the message? What are they trying to tell us? So we have the jackass, Ali G. And the reason why I say that is because I had an argument with a lecturer that if he wasn't Jewish, he could never have got away with that. Black man is not going on TV and talking about Gaelic must be a Batty man language. Him and his family would have get moved out of England. And if you think I'm lying, go and talk to Leo Mohammed or any of those people in the real McCoy and they will tell you what happened to that program. People think, oh, you're being harsh. I went to a lecture where the lecturer was talking and applauding Ali G. And I said, okay, did he get away with it because he's Jewish? Oh, let's not go there. I said, why not? Why can't we go there if that's where we need to go to understand? You put it to the test because not even a white comedian could go on TV and do what he does. And you may think, oh, Liz, you're extra, whatever. Proof is in the pudding. One of you go and try. One of you go and try. Go and interview some of those people and start saying, oh, this, that, really. They might be uncuffed and lift you backstage. It's just how it is. The man who gave us rock and roll, Kingmaker Sam, dies at 80. We ain't dwelling, we're just thinking. From time immemorial, as religious art testifies, images have played a key role in the communication, instruction, and general transmission of culture. In an age of communications media, the role of images has become all the more potent. That comes from a book by a guy called, I think the pronunciation is Petrus. It's called White on Black, and it has some of the best images. If you want to see imagery of so-called black people and non-Europeans, not just black people, but non-Europeans, how they're represented, check that book. It has about 150-year span of images. And you can see jigaboo images from 1850 that are being recreated now. Who's heard of Amos and Andy? Amos and Andy. Does anyone want to tell people who they are, for those who don't know? Amos and Andy? Yeah. What colour were they? Two black guys. Any takers? Two black guys, Amos and Andy. Shuffling zip coons. But they were broadcast on the radio first, for 20 years I think it was. Amos and Andy. If you listen to Public Enemy and KRS-One, they're always talking about them. You ever seen Burn Hollywood Burn? the video by Public Enemy, are them things they have to watch. Because they feature a lot of those clips. So we have Amos and Andy, we've got Black and White, whatever, we've got this one, we've got the black man obviously chasing after the white woman. You have to have them images in there. But you notice he's got a double barrel shotgun at his head back, 14. Dick Gregory, you know, the famous so-called comedian, one of the most profound cultural critics from America, suggested Hollywood has never spent a penny to entertain us. This is the original Amos and Andy. They acted out the coon-like role on the radio for about 20 years. Then they got two black people to front it. Because you couldn't have a visual program without coons. Think about it. Then we have who? West Eminem, Radigan, something on my breaking. Well, not my breaking, but yeah. But we need to think about it. We need to think about who's representing who and why. When I do my film clip, any of you ain't familiar with this, it's taken from Bamboozled. Have any of you seen Bamboozled, Spike Lee? Everybody should watch that film. Everybody should watch that film. Because to me that is one of the most powerful critiques of how white supremacy works as a system to the detriment of non-white people. It is a profound movie, and that's why you never hear nothing about it when it was released. Seen this? Have you not seen this clearly? You see, on a photog cup, you know, if you didn't say Les, we can't see it, you know, we could have deal with it already. Anyway, this is two monkeys dressed up as the Men in Black. Can you see it? Oh, okay. Anyway, it's alright. We're good to go. Yeah, look, my little brethren. My brethren. My little friend that, you know. Yeah, man. Big TV star that. I was trying to work out which one was the cartoon, but I didn't want to. Boy, we're talking about misrepresentation. It's a good thing I got glasses because I wear them. Just to sort it out. Right. Now, this isn't clear, and I'll explain to you why. I was in Cyprus last month when I was there with my family for a wedding. And we were walking down the road, and I was waiting for some of the group I was with. And they went into this shop, and because I was tired, I thought I would sit down outside, and I had one of my daughters with me. They came out and they said to me, Les, come inside and look on some of these things. And I went inside and I saw some imagery, and I said to myself, what am I saying? Didn't have no camera or anything, I didn't even really bring a decent camera with me. But my daughter had this little, you know, the little computer webcam you can take little pictures of. So I went back down there, and these pictures were taken through the front window. And the shop is like one of them big superstores like Marks and Spencer, so the front window is as long as this thing. And what you can see there are Africans, don't know what kind of Africans they are, but Africans or black people, with their afros, their long afro hair, sitting on bananas, so they're having sex, they're fornicating or whatever, and smoking weed. It's big spliffs. Yeah? This is 2005, last month, in fact it was 3 weeks ago. Same thing again, now they're sitting on bananas, doing whatever it is Africans do, because we're lascivious, which means we are. Look how big them they are. But it's how you got it. I noticed that they had images of pigs, and the pigs ain't even having sex. They're just lying down on the beach like what people do on it. Suppose. But this was the worst one. monkeys in red, gold and green smoking spliffs. This is 2005. Now, people will say to me, oh God, that's so racist. What I say to them is, you can't think about it like that. You have to think about it in the context that when we were in Cyprus, I saw about 3 black people in 1 week, other than us in the hotel for the wedding. So you have to think, where do they get this idea from? Where does it come from? We were in Paphos, in Cyprus, and you tell me, where do these ideas come from? I have a good idea. Now we're going to try and make sense out of some of this stuff. I'm going to use Capleton, a bit of Jamaican, lesson in Jamaican language. And don't worry if you don't understand it, because I'm going to break it down, but I actually used this at the University of the West Indies, in Mona campus, in Jamaica, but most of them didn't understand what we were about. So don't feel it. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I've got it on tape. So here we go, Capleton. I wanted to just start making a little bit of sense out of some of what we
limited in a hundred days. I don't know Babylon even try to limit I and I as a nation and a people, you know, even from an educational level, because them give you all levels and PhD and then them lock you up and say, yo, what I want to know is that you know, what the real authentic thing you know about yourself as a race and a nation and a people in terms of heritage and culture and philosophy and curriculum that never taught in the school, at the institution or the college. So we have to look on it on a national level so we won't get caught in the disillusion and the fantasy, you know. So this is what life have taught I.
Right there? Capleton. 1999, it was an interview with New York's version of David Radigan, Bobby Condon. What a DJ, and he does good interviews. But we're talking about representation, and we're talking about education. And I remember when I got this cassette, I thought to myself, why? That's deep, you know, what he's saying there about education. So let's think about what he says. First thing he says, forget all that, I'm looking at you. He says, you don't know say Babylon, and I'm sure we all know who Babylon is. Yes. Even try limit I and I, as a nation, as a people, even on an educational level, call them, give it all levels and PhD, then and knock with our fun, say, yo, what I want to know is that you. My question is, what do you know? You only know what someone has chosen to taught you, teach you. And I know, because I've been educated to the highest level in a FIDEM system, and I know there's some brethren and sisters in here who are going through the same thing. I'm going to give thanks that they're here because it means their minds are still operating. You've been educated to the highest level, but what do you know? You know what they want you to know to get that piece of paper. It doesn't matter whether it's an O-level or a PhD. It's written in a context, in a framework. You can introduce certain knowledges you can't. So what do you know? What Capleton said. What I want to know is that you know. He then says, but the real authentic thing you should know about yourself as a race, a nation, a people in terms of heritage, culture and philosophies and curriculum, that never taught in the school, nor the institution, nor the college. I do this all the time. I taught in Goldsmiths on this summer school thing. I taught year 10 students. And there was a mixture for once. There was a balance between black and white students. And I said to them, tell me anything you've learned about Africans that they have contributed to anything over the last 500 years, and you can't mention Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, or whatever. Nothing. Then I get, but my uncle, I said, I never asked you what your uncle would teach you. I asked you what you learned in school. Nothing. Hasn't changed. Has not significantly changed. And yet part of the so-called curriculum and UNESCO and this and that and all these wonderful directives suggest that all people should be taught about the cultural and folkways and mores of the cultural group that they represent. So they should have some kind of historical dimension. This frightens me, because it is exactly the same as why I ended up thumping up one of my teachers and getting kicked out of school in the early 70s. I mean, I'll tell you, I really, and I'm going to tell you, right. So what Capleton suggests is we have to look at it on a natural level. We have to look around the world that we live in to make sense of what is going on. Because the people who supposedly educate us are not going to assist us on that particular journey. We have to look at it on a natural level so we don't get caught in the disillusion or the fantasy. And if you want an example of what I'm talking about, people who have been educated to the highest level and can't even get a job in academia. But if they go to America or even to Europe, they can get a job. Even to Scotland, you can get a job. But not in England. It's not an impossible. I know lecturers, seasoned lecturers who have got X amount of publications they've published in all the right journals and they don't even get shortlisted in the sociology department at Goldsmiths College. So one of the things what I suggest is when we are saying to our youth, because I always say the minimum requirement now is a degree. Forget all this stuff, what people tell you. That's the way our society is going. This is why they're starting to bring in top-up fees to exclude who was excluded before. The minimum requirement is a degree. So if there's one thing you want to encourage your youth to do, even if they want to be a plumber, go and do a degree. Because it gives you another string to your bow. You can go and teach, if nothing else. You need to think about these things. So he suggests that this is what life has taught us. I don't know if you don't remember the cricket a few years ago, the ironically named Marlon Black. The West Indians were in Australia, came out of a club, all merry, a bit lean, and got attacked by Aussie racists. Got bottles thrown in their heads, bricks, everything, and boss, blood, everything. When asked to explain this racist attack, Black suggested it was really unfortunate. It was just a little misunderstanding. I think they might have mistaken us for Africans. So me said, no, you have to hold on there. Because, you know, sometimes I have to go and reason with my mother, you know. Because when I saw this, so me said, when I saw this, I said, so what I know? So if him dip in my pocket now and take out him Trinidadian passport and say, who I cover? They're going to stop beating him. Because he's not an African. This is what Bobby E. Wright and Marimba Annie call menticide, mental suicide. Think about it though. How the hell can you say that in the paper? If that was my son, he would have get some box when you go. I mean, I really beat picnic. It's crazy, but look at this. I only feature this, I like using this, but I feature it because it is election day, so go and vote. I vote with my feature. Coalition, we're not going to really go into this, just quickly. Tory party's race, slur on Labour. Stephen Lawrence's killers were obviously Labour voters. Prejudice is what makes black footballers as good as they are. A good economy stops black people from feeling so bad. This was part of what she was doing for the election in 1998. Remember that man, William Hague? Vague Hague, because he must have been to recruit someone like this. The woman saying, she never took a bus for something like 18 years. She's never taken public transport, she drives everywhere. So which black people does she represent? I also need to think about what does a modicum of economic well-being do for me? Because I know sometimes when my pockets are flush, I still feel black. So we have to think about these things. What about Fire Chief? I'd rather be a gay than black. He lost his job for that, you know. when I saw it, I said to myself, them should I give him my medal? You know why? Because what he said to me works on so many different levels. The most obvious one, let's get rid of it. Because I used to be a youth worker in the 80s, and I used to have to go away for these weekends and have some fool, just because they was there at MA or a doctorate or whatever, telling me some stupidness about, oh, well, all the president all works in the same way. I said, check your own, man, because you don't know it's me here. What you're saying is more than that. So how the hell can it be the same thing? Oh, sorry, I'm not allowed to say that either. Well, excuse me. Fire chief, I'd rather be a gay than black. You know to me what is the most significant thing about that? He knows that if he was black, he would never be the fire chief. That's why they should have given him a medal. If not for anything else. You talk, I got brethren and sisters who tried to get in the fire brigade, you know. That's the stories they need to tell about the so-called black experience in Britain. That's the kind of things what we need to think about. So now our second extract from one of my favourite DJs, Papa Levi. And one of the things what I do is I find alternative sites for critiquing a lot of this stuff. So in 1994, Levi did an album called Back to Basics, and it was about John Major's policy. Remember? Back to Basics. And he said, go with your rhetoric back to basics. This is what Levi said. But in it, he had a track called Nuff Black. And it's really funny because I did a lecture in 1996 or 1997 at the University of Warwick as part of the Caribbean Conference, and I played this lyric and people getting vexed, and I said, no, you can't hear them. So what do you make of it?
Not every time that I switch on the TV and I see 3 or 4 black celebrities, they always seem to each other with coffee. Children, what are they trying to tell me? Enough black, them are lost, fame and status. When they get rich, them want people, they dust. When enough black are lost, fame and status. When they get rich, them want people, them scare me. Cause every time they click on the damn TV, far as the too good for guys can see. No black man will live up a popularity. Whether in a sport, music or movie, when they get a little success financially, them traffic occasion automatically. But them a smile and a feel that enough of the bright relatives that call him darky, you no call him darky, call him curly. Darky, no my darky, they with whitey. When people get brainwashed, then drink dirty water, they reach the top and they think that wrong and they know that's slack. You know what I mean, Harry? Friggin' idiot, the one they want to deny their neck back. Turn when you marry me, carrot ya wash me socks. Me no eat the cake and neither pork chops. Black man, you feel do better than that, no.
And what the people got upset about was when he said, he might eat pork chops. So I don't know if I had trained time, they might have pork, pig. I don't know if that's what they were talking about. I said no. Well, I was right kind of mind. So I want us to think about this now. Because I love football. I love football, I love martial arts, I love learning sometimes. Do you remember this Patrick Vieira? I shamed my race. He spat at a footballer called Neil Ruddock, and he came out and said he shamed his race. What is significant about this is Patrick Vieira comes from where? Senegal. And born in or plays for. So which race is it he shamed? Does that make sense? Have you ever known a white person to make such a statement? I shamed my race. I spat in your face and I shamed my race. You ever hear that? Why do you think that is? Why do you think you don't hear that? Because
white people feel being afraid.
yeah, Toni Morrison wrote about that. About white people as, I paraphrase, the only group without an ethnicity. Because everything else is measured against them. So what am I talking about? One of the most burgeoning areas of social theory, social science is studies of whiteness. Surprise, surprise, 99.999% of the people there who write about it are white. And it's been developing and expanding for about the last 15 years. In a book called White, this guy called Dyer basically suggests, no, he quoted from a woman called Peggy McIntosh, who in another book on whiteness listed 42 things, it's something like 42 things that work in her favor just for being white. They were not earned or achieved. You know that thing about the black sheep and the black thing and the and the dictionary, you heard of that? Martin Luther King was one of the people who brought that into the public arena. It doesn't mean people weren't discussing it, but he was one of the people who said, look in an ordinary dictionary, and as a so-called Negro, you find about 156 ways to disrespect yourself, and as a white person, you find something like about 50 odd ways to boost up yourself. This is how whiteness works. So this is what Peggy McIntosh stated. I can turn on the television or open to the front page of the paper and see people of my race widely represented. If I want to, I'm pretty sure I can find a publisher for this piece on white privilege. Remember, this was written, I think this was written about 1989 or 1990. Okay. Whether I use checks, credit cards, or cash, I can count on my skin color not to work against the appearance of financial reliability. I can swear or dress in second-hand clothes or not answer letters without having people attribute these to the poverty or illiteracy of my race. I am never asked to speak for all the people of my racial group. This goes back to the thing I spoke about Africans being absolutely interchangeable because we were 3/5 of a human being. Doesn't matter what African it is, doesn't matter what nigger it is, they're just interchangeable. So one does something, everybody feels shielded. Have you ever questioned why? Because I know I used to watch TV and hear about some atrocious crime and think, God, please don't let them be black. Stop doing them things they know. I stopped doing it because that was part of that psychology that made us feel like we're absolutely responsible for all the actions of every African on the face of the planet Earth. And Europeans do not suffer from that guilt complex. My brethren, have you not seen this? You was in my class, was you in the class? Was you in the class when this was given to me? It was when I was doing race and representation. When I was doing race and representation. No, not you. Yeah, try not to hop you. Yeah, you're looking around behind. No. Yeah. No, not you. I was in a class teaching a thing on race and representation, and I always say to my students or anyone, I say, if you see anything interesting, carry it, come here. I was sitting down and I was doing this thing as a double block lecture, so I lecture for about 50 minutes, we have a break and then I finish it. During the break, a sister got up, she opened up her bag and she gave me a box of tea. So the first time I said, I don't drink tea. And he said, no. And when I looked at him, he said, what is it? And I said to her, most people who know me know that probably 80% of the time I'm vexed. And I said to her, I'm in a pretty good mood today. Why? When I looked at it, anyway, I'm looking at it and I said, plantation fresh. So forget about all the zip coon and the smiles, and when you see the bit of film I put together, you will make sense of that. But I said, plantation fresh. Now, if you look at the image at the top, it doesn't matter who is on the plantation. The thing that you know is that they are either South Asians, East Asians, or Africans. Plantation fresh. One poor little sister was sitting in the front. must have picked up on my angry vibe and said, Les, what's the problem? I like Ainsley. I like his cooking. I said, to the fact that you don't even know if he can cook, and you certainly probably have never eaten anything that he's cooked, we won't even go there. But I said, you really don't see anything wrong with this? And the sister came from Ghana as well. She said, no. And I goes, okay, let's take out plantation fresh and put in Holocaust blend or Auschwitz brew. Oh God, they just so out of order. I said, why? The plantation was absolutely a Holocaust. Absolutely. Our Holocaust. As Khalid Mohammed said, it was the African Holocaust, because we still up here hell of a cost for what them do. I don't know, give me no money. But this stuff is deep. Think about it. Yes, sir.
I don't want to interrupt the lecture.
You can interrupt any time.
But I think we're going to go with that later and ask you what's going on. But not in the context of this image right now. But I'm more thinking about Ainsley Harriet and the fact that he's assassinated to a certain extent. I mean, at the end of the day, he's just doing his thing.
At the end of the day,
he's hustling the best way he knows how. And making
fine. You know what? We can get there in a minute. But my argument is, okay, and you'll get the gist of it in a minute when I show the film. If we had balance as a community, if we had balance, if we had other types of empowering or uplifting representation of Africans, this wouldn't be a problem. But this is what we get. We get fed a diet of this. And no disrespect, I don't really care what people want to do for their money. That's up to them. And I don't necessarily think he is accountable to me. My problem is that if this was the Jewish community and they put out some tea, it wouldn't be any reference to an atrocity that was committed against them by someone else. That's what the reference is. The reference is the plant. What is the plantation? Yes, in Jamaica we love ackee and saltfish and yam and dumpling. Plantation food that.
I'm from Africa and plantations are still there where I come from.
There's still plantations in Jamaica.
And it's fine. We don't have political ideas.
But this is not what the point is. You see what the point is? No, what the point is that, yes, we know what a plantation is. I've got a plantation in my garden. My daughter's going to plant some carrots. But that's not what the plantation means in the psyche of Africans who were 3/5 of a human being and worked on them. Europe used Africa as a scaffold to build an edifice that is known as Europe. Unpaid labor. That's what the plantation represents. For instance, in Goldsmiths, I have to teach them about the Industrial Revolution. Oh, the spinning jenny and all these wonderful revolutionary inventions, the steam disc, to create better ways of yarning and weaving what? Cotton. Where was it grown? On the plantation. By who? Them did I get money? It's the African Holocaust. The thing is, you don't have to agree. I don't really care whether anyone agrees with me or not. But that's a short of reasoning. Who want to take it, who don't want to take it, fine. But that's how I learn.
I'm going to pick it up with you.
Because to me, we need to really think about the kind of images and representation. Because I know that if it was the Irish community and they did something about potatoes, it wouldn't be there. Because they know what the potato famine did to them when the English starved them and then young grass and start turning green.
Okay, can I ask them one more thing? Which particular black race is offended? Which particular black people are offended?
By this?
Yeah.
I find it offensive. But we can get to this in a minute. We can get this in a minute. Yeah, we can get to this in a minute. But this is one of the ways. But to me, this is one of the ways how this stuff works. And so to make sense out of what my argument is now, check this. There's a book called The Sociology of Slavery by a guy called Orlando Patterson. Anyone who wants the bibliography, email me, info@newbeyond.com. I'll put the bibliography together, send you the references. Don't have to write them down. Just write down the email. Now in this book, The Sociology of Slavery, Orlando Patterson talks about some of the psychological mechanisms that were used against the slaves. Flashback. Remember when I spoke about Carter G. Woodson and Negroes creating a back door when there wasn't one there? This is how it works. One of the things what Orlando Patterson says is, the ease with which it is to shift from the meaning of master, as man having control or authority, to that of a teacher or one qualified to teach, reflects the ease with which it is possible to shift from our conception of the slave plantation as a brutal system of exploitation and human degradation to a pastoral college for the edification of poor savages eager to learn the superior arts of the civilized master. That's the psychology behind it. Because the plantation should be an aberration in the history of the African. One that we need to interrogate. But for many of us it isn't. For many of us it doesn't have to be. But when you're walking down the road and white people say to you things like, oh you dirty black bastard, who are you looking at? We'll have you nigger. They don't care whether you come from the motherland or you come from Trinidad. Or you could come from Beckton or Brockley. You think they care? They don't care.
Doctor, I'd love...
We can get there in a minute. Everything is up for grabs today. So here we have the Crouchies. And apparently they made a second series. When this came out, I watched the first 4 because as a researcher, I needed some research material. But I don't know if you don't know the history of this program. Apparently some white Scottish guy was walking in New Cross, saw these quaint looking people, I could have been one of them, and decided he was going to write a sitcom about them. And because of how the power dynamics works, he got his sitcom. And to me, it's one of the most disgracefully and disrespectful things I've ever seen. And not only that, you have to frame it in the context that in the history of the BBC, it was the first so-called black sitcom. We're talking 2003, it came out? Outrageous. Do you remember one time they showed a generic version of an Irish family on EastEnders? And the Irish got that taken off. Just thinking. According to Hutchinson, in a book called The Destruction of the Black Male Image, or The Assassination of the Black Male Image, he suggests these contemporary misrepresentations of the black community are undeniably the product of white supremacist thought and action that practically from the cradle to the grave throb with and reinforce racial and gender stereotypes. It is virtually impossible to be immune from this social pollution. And again, when I read this book a few years ago, I thought to myself, you know what, Les, you're not mad. Enough people have me out as mad. When I used to DJ on the sound system, they used to tell me certain mad. Because I used to question certain things and say, oh, why have they done that? The thing is, what you have to understand, if there's anyone who works for newspaper or who's in media, even that image there gagged, it's not as if somebody said, oh, okay, maybe let's draw that image then. The whole heap of thought goes into that. Those 1-hour programs you see on Channel 4 that look like they were chucked together in 5 minutes, £140,000 is the average for making one of them. There's a process of thought, consideration, and action to these things. So when you see this social pollution, like the Crouches, you need to be thinking about, who the hell are they doing that? Oh, where am I going with? Because the thing is, our children will imbibe, they'll absorb this stuff like sponges. And if you don't, as Minister Farrakhan said, when you get your children home from school, debrief them. When you let your children watch TV, debrief them. Because they cannot be immune from this. It's like there's a powerful brother, Amos N. Wilson, joined the ancestors, God rest his soul. You know one of the things what he said? As Africans, as black people, we are so used to white people saving everything that we just are weird for them to see it. Whereas the white Jesus are torn bleeder. Because we've been fed a diet of them saving us from everything, including ourselves. including the painful experience of learning a history that will allow you to cope with, transcend, and resist social privilege. So now I know it's getting a bit long, I've strayed a bit, but I'm going to play you my bit of film. It was edited by me, so don't expect a professional job like New Britain and probably New Britain, you know, I like that, you know, because we're here to stay. We're here to stay. We ain't got nowhere to go. Anyway, I'm going to play you this bit of DVD I put together. It's about 12 minutes long. And I want you to just look at what you're going to get. And I want you to just... Right, I want you to just look at the images, okay, because there is a method to the madness, and I want you to think about the terms that are used. Niggers and crackers. Niggers and crackers. Because there's one thing that I absolutely believe, and I've been saying it to people for years, if we started calling white people crackers, the term nigger would disappear. Because the nigger was the flip side of the cracker coin. You know where cracker comes from? Does anyone know where the word cracker comes from? The word cracker comes from the crack of the whip, it's onomatopoeic. That became the name for the master. Crack. That's why they call them crackers. And I absolutely believe that if we were familiar with that history, you wouldn't have had a cracker if you didn't have someone who created or told you that you were a nigger. So just like African